Good morning. Thanks to significantly improved durability and reliability compared to its predecessor, T25 generation, such Avensis will drive for years, although there is a catch, which I will discuss later. In any case, Toyota has managed to remind us that Japanese cars do not necessarily have to be manufactured in Japan to be reliable. The Avensis T27 is at least a partial return to the glorious tradition established by the Carina E, also manufactured in Burnaston, Great Britain. This is not your typical used car buyer's guide detailing the pros and cons of a given vehicle. It is a description of the most common faults and failures in a given car model, which by no means that every copy of a given model will eventually experience a given failure. However, it can give you some idea whether the car is worth being interested in at all or whether it should be avoided at all costs, and whether the faults indicated can be avoided or not, and whether the worst ones will make a big dent in your pocket. So now that we have explained everything, we can start. The body's anti-corrosion protection has been significantly improved compared to its predecessor, but it's still not perfect. The red enemy is usually seen on the boot lid, and it's also worth checking the condition of the paintwork. In older cars, there were examples with factory paint defects. In addition, users quite regularly complain about noise from door seals and faulty headlight washers. If the model is equipped with them, the problem is usually the washer pump. You can come across examples, mostly estate cars it seems, where water gets into the vehicle and soaks the headliner. This may be due to leaky rail mounting points. On the plus side, we can note the solidity of the electrical system and electronics. It's hard to say anything negative about them. In each of these subcategories, the Toyota Avensis T27 has its share of mishaps, although the frequency of their occurrence varies. In addition, although the body usually resists corrosion well, the chassis is worse. It may not be a tragedy, but many examples have a lot of rust, which is worth checking. Additional anti-corrosion protection may be worth considering. The suspension in most cars doesn't cause any major problems, apart from the aforementioned rust coating, but occasionally you come across a model with a manufacturing defect that causes it to pull while driving. The problem is that, according to the owners of such Avensis, usually neither authorized service stations nor independent mechanics were able to fix it. And even if they finally did, it could take up to 2 to 3 years. If the car was still under warranty, Toyota sometimes replaced it with a new one that was free from the defect. In any case, those interested in buying a used model should pay attention to this during a test drive. Although the braking system, apart from the parking brake, generally does not cause problems, it is worth noting that the front brake discs could be of 2 sizes. All petrol versions and diesels up to 2 liters, except for the 2-liter diesel from BMW, had discs with a diameter of 290 millimeters. In 2.2-liter diesels, Toyota, and 2 liters from BMW, the front discs were 320 millimeters in diameter, which is why such cars were equipped with 17-inch rims. Smaller ones could not be fitted. The petrol engine range is definitely the brightest point of the 3rd generation Avensis. 3 engines were used throughout the production period, all from the ZR series. The versions to choose from were 1.6, 132 HP, 160 Nm, 1.8, 147 HP, 180 Nm, and 2.0, 152 HP, 196 Nm. All have the same cylinder diameter, 80.5 mm, differ in piston stroke, from 78.5 to 97.6 mm. It is worth noting that the use of the 2.0 D4 VVTi AZ series units with direct injection known from the previous generation has been abandoned. All ZRs have multi-point injection, which, together with the fact of hydraulic valve clearance compensation, means that these engines have a group of fans among users of LPG installations. Its use is not hindered by the advanced Valvomatic variable valve lift system, which is a solution that does not cause problems. If they do happen, however, a new element can cost around 3,000 Polish zlotys or more, and you still have to add the cost of replacement. The timing chain does not cause problems. The main disadvantages include the low durability of the water pump. Sometimes in the unlucky ones it lasts 50–60,000 kilometers. Usually it should reach around 100–120,000 kilometers. Sometimes there is increased oil consumption, still lower than in the older ZZ series engines, and slight sweating/leaks, mainly around the timing drive housing. If something is rattling suspiciously in petrol engines, it is worth paying attention to the vacuum pump, so-called vacuum pump. It can be the cause of unpleasant sounds. RPM fluctuations sometimes occur. There were a few nice words, time for a few worse ones. Let's be honest. The candidate for a durable Avensis T27 is probably the Petrol Avensis T27. It is true that there is also a lot to choose from among diesels, but it is difficult. The 80 series engines were taken from the previous generation of the car, and especially in the first 2 years of offering this generation of cars, are a very risky choice. And this is due to problems with the head gasket and erosion of the aluminum engine block. Toyota has often replaced these engines even after the warranty expired, but if someone were to come across this type of failure now, they would probably have to look into expensive repairs or simply replacing the engine. The AD series includes 2 and 2.2-liter diesels used in 2008 to 2015. Their durability was improved after 2010. DPF filters can cause problems. They get clogged. They were improved during production, so when looking for a diesel car, it is better to look for younger models. It is true that the oldest cars, 2008 to 2010, sometimes do not have DPFs, but here we come back to the issue of faulty engines. In 2015, the AD engines were withdrawn from the range, replaced by 1.6 and 2.0 diesels from BMW. Toyota marked them with the codes 1WW 1.6D4D and 2WW 2.0D4D, based on the Bavarian brand's N47 unit. If someone is looking for the latest Avensis and must have a diesel engine, they may be tempted to buy such a car, but in most cases, the competition has diesels that are simply more noteworthy, even considering that problems with timing in Toyotas are not heard as often as in the case of BMWs. All Toyota Avensis ii's have front-wheel drive. Standard for all engines, without exception, was a 6-speed manual transmission. Its weak point is the bearings, and it is also relatively often criticized for poor precision, worse than in older Toyotas. Users report problems with engaging first and reverse gears. There were 2 other options. The 1.8 and 2.0 petrol engines had the multi-drive S continuously variable transmission, CVT, and the 2.2 D4D diesel, only in the 150 horsepower version, not in the 177 horsepower DCAT, had a 6-speed automatic. The latter option is mentioned rather rarely in all sources, which is basically good news. There should be no problems with excessive failures, provided of course that the oil is changed regularly. The CVT also requires it every 90,000 kilometers, and most sources advise approaching the continuously variable transmission with due caution if the car has a high mileage. Yes, breakdowns do happen, but owners of petrol cars can basically sleep soundly. There's nothing here that would make you kick yourself for buying an Avensis. The most financially troublesome, apart from diesel repairs, may be parking brake failures. And that the car isn't very exciting? Well, it is, but after all, not everyone needs a race car for commuting to work. And if you know of any common errors, your comments are welcome.
Petrol-Website ist Katalog aller Automarken, Motoren, Getriebe, was bricht und bei welchem Kilometerstand. Welche Pakete können Ihre Tasche hart belasten? Dieses und vieles mehr über Autos erfahren Sie auf Petrol.